Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the latest episode. All right. I love some participation right off the bat. It really shows this is gonna be a great episode. Welcome to the latest episode of. We really got to get that figured out.
Oh yeah, I still got the logo.
It's all right. For right now, story time with Chris and Daniel. It's not like it's illegal. It's just not what we're gonna stick with long term.
It's not illegal.
Anyway, it's been a minute. We apologize. As we were just discussing before we got recording, we've been trying to mix things up a little bit, bring you guys, some different content in different ways, different formats, just trying some things out. And long story short, none of it's worked out great. A couple weeks ago, we tried to sit in a different room, put Ghostbusters on for Daniel, who's never seen it, to kind of give it a watch and react to it live, and then do a quick little thing after to just kind of talk about it.
I'm sorry, did you feel that?
Mm-mm.
That was just, I think we just had a minor earthquake.
Are you for real?
I'm dead serious.
No, I did not.
They've been getting them a lot in Elgin lately, for like the past 5 years. I'm surprised you didn't feel it. Everything just kind of shook, and like the thing.
No, I didn't.
I wonder if it's going to show in the camera. Maybe I'm just hallucinating.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's possible, but I don't think so. Anyways, continue, Jim Carrey.
But yeah, we couldn't get the movie onto it was a whole thing. And then what we're actually discussing today is a review, kind of an in-depth discussion on the new Captain America, Brave New World film. We went and saw it. When was that? Last week?
Yeah.
Last
Saturday.
Week? Okay.
Almost a whole week ago.
Almost a week ago. And what we were attempting was to kind of record beforehand, just discuss what we were anticipating, our thoughts, were we looking forward to it? Were we not? What were we expecting? And then go into it and then come back out. And the end of the episode would have been us kind of like, hey, an immediate reaction out of the movie. And instead, could not get the camera to work properly for us. And we were eating before the movie in a place with some very loud music playing. And so,
great music.
It's good. It just was a little overwhelming for what we were going for.
I think the conclusion from this is we have really big dreams and really no way to execute them.
Yeah.
Because our thoughts were like, we want to do the podcast in a restaurant, like as we're discussing pre-movie, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah. I think it could have been better had we maybe scoped it out or had more time to, maybe one day we'll figure it out. Maybe. But for right now, I think we've agreed this works. So
yeah,
while we're getting rolling and still getting comfortable, this will probably just be the format for now. So hopefully you guys are enjoying it. We appreciate you tuning in, checking it out. And yeah, so I guess with that, let's kind of just start jumping into some discussions. How you been, man? How's your week been since we met up for the movie?
Good. No complaints. No sleep as usual, and I'm loving it, Jim Carrey.
Yeah, you're out of it. What do you mean? Are you being serious about no sleep?
I'm joking a little bit.
Oh.
My wife is having the worst of it. She doesn't.
Oh.
Yeah, because we have a daughter, and she's still.
Oh, okay, okay.
She's still waking up at night.
I got you.
It doesn't, like, I still wake up because we have the baby monitor in there, and then some, if she resettles, she'll come back in. So I wake up from those.
Right.
But she's up with the baby, like
right.
in the room. So yeah.
Yeah, I got a good dose of that last night myself.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
So he stopped sleeping through the night?
Well, he's teething. So
yeah.
His back ones are coming in now, and it has been the worst of it by far.
Yeah.
And my mom had told us at one point that, like, when babies teeth, I guess, like, a lot of crazy stuff can happen to them. Like, they can get sick just because of the teething. Like, it's not even, like, a viral thing.
Yeah.
And we think that happened last night. We went to bed, and maybe 2-3 hours later, because we were in bed probably by, like, 10-ish, and I think it was probably around 1, so it was about 3 hours. he just kind of woke up, and sometimes he wakes up and gets a little like squirmy and then cries a little bit, but he'll go back to sleep. He woke up and he just started crying, like I mean screaming, crying, and would not stop, and it went on for about an hour. And yeah, so I had to go. I got up at like 2 a.m. and had to go to CVS for some stuff, and yeah,
Man, that's rough.
yeah. So I mean, it was a rough night, but hopefully we're it's the back teeth, so I mean we're near the end of it. Everything else is pretty much in. So
imagine that happening for 2 years straight.
Yeah, I can't really. I can complain, just not to you.
Yeah, no, you can't complain.
I can't.
I'm just joking.
It won't amount to much.
Y'all are having struggles with him napping though, right?
Yeah, he's not a napper.
Yeah,
he does not nap.
So we at least have that. She naps pretty easy. A lot of times for like 3 hours in the middle of the day. Probably because she's not sleeping at night.
Yeah, she's so exhausted from all that effort.
Yeah.
No, we're like the polar opposite. We cannot get. I mean, he will nap if we are just more stubborn than him. Of like
like a fist. It's like he will nap.
Nah, he'll nap if we're like more stubborn than him on it, and like really stick with it, and we're just like, nope, no, I don't care what you're gonna nap. But if it's just a day where it's like, we'd prefer you to nap, but like, yeah, he's not gonna.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, he'll sleep through the night pretty good. So I
go.
can't complain too much on that. But yeah.
So this is what we're talking about today.
Yeah. Talking about babies and teething and
sleep,
napping. No. So we've had about a week now, like we said, to sit on the movie. We have, I think...
It's much less comfortable than a chair, though.
It is. I mean, I don't know why people started doing this.
I don't either.
I think it's bigger in the podcast space than anywhere else. And it's just unfortunate that we decided to, charge in at this time in that stratosphere. But, it is what it is. So now that we have been doing it, what do you think?
Of the movie?
Of sitting on it.
Oh, it's much less comfortable than a chair.
All right. No, but I think we've both checked out like some other reviews and things, and probably had a little more time to sit with our own, opinions and takeaways. So, what were your thoughts? Well, I guess let's go back to that night real quick before we start talking about like where we're at now. I mean, do you remember any immediate reaction that night as we were walking out? And
I thought it was good. Like I've been shocked at how many people don't like the movie, at least on YouTube, because I keep checking Rotten Tomatoes and it's 80% audience score.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out, is it just the like niche of people who review movies on YouTube that hate it? The critics didn't like it. On like usually like the YouTube critics disagree with the critics on like Rotten Tomatoes,
right? But
it's not that way this time. So I was really kind of shocked that so many people seem to really hate it. And this is coming from someone who's like a pretty big critic of Disney in general. Like I'm usually not a fan of the stuff Disney does, but I think people like from the reviews that I've heard, I think they have legitimate concerns, but I think they're elevating them to saying the movie is complete garbage and just a disaster. I'm like, well, I have some gripes with it, but it wasn't a bad movie,
Right.
Anyway,
I think that's kind of where I was at too. I mean, coming out of it, I was more like, it was almost like a little bit of a relief, because I was like, okay, that was better than I thought it'd be.
Yeah.
Because of all the things I had heard before going into it, I tried not to overly indulge in like the early critic reviews and stuff, but I did want to see what the temperature was on it. I kind of wanted to feel that out a little bit, and like you said, it was pretty overwhelmingly negative, other than the crowd score on Rotten Tomatoes was vastly different. But I guess I'm kind of like you. I had gripes. I don't think they didn't ruin it for me as much as it clearly did for some other people. I didn't come out of that thinking that was like a top tier, top shelf Marvel movie.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think what's happened is I think we've gotten to a point where a couple things are true. and this is completely my opinion, but this is my theory on things. I think we're to a point where people expect too much from a movie anymore.
Especially a Marvel movie.
Yes, I genuinely believe that the expectations for just movies in general is so borderline unattainable that it's impossible for something to really, I mean, it has to just really come out of left field to shock people anymore. I think there's been some pretty good movies to come out in the last like decade that have really gotten crapped all over, and I'm just like, why? I mean, it didn't change the entire industry or anything, but do you know how hard that probably is to do at this point? I
Yeah.
mean, where we're at now. I mean, I think people just expect that because there's so much more technology every new year that goes forward that movies are just going to get that much better. But it's like my brother and I, we play a good bit of video games and stuff, and we were talking about the fact that like the graphics on video games, it's always a selling point with like the next generation of systems to come out that like the graphics are going to be so much better. And they probably are better, but we're kind of to a point now where it's like they're borderline photorealistic graphics on all video PC, the newest PlayStations and Xboxes and stuff. I mean, it's like it's probably about as good as it's going to get. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't really, there's really nowhere to go from there. And I think that's kind of where we're at with movies. It's like I understand where people have a gripe with certain CG things, and I'm going to talk about some specific things in this movie, good and bad, that I saw CG related. Um, I understand where people have some gripes with that because I do think we're at a time where like you're a big Lord of the Rings fan. Those came
Yeah,
out in like
boy.
the early 2000s. The CG in those movies is maybe a smidge dated, but I mean, it's phenomenal.
Dude, I would argue the CGI in those movies like is better than the stuff that comes out today.
I think a lot of people would argue that. And that's my point is we're so further now advanced with that technology. There really is no excuse for bad looking CG in a movie, but the bottom line is back when that movie came out as opposed to these how these come out, especially the Marvel ones cuz it's like a machine, it boils down to do these CG artists have enough time? And that was a huge thing with like the Spider-Verse movies. It's a little different cuz they're animated, but the bottom line was the artists kind of came out and were like, it's just really unfair working conditions because we're being asked to hand draw however many hundreds of thousands, if not maybe millions of frames of this movie to put this like love and care and detail into every second of it. And it turned out really cool. The final project looked fantastic, but the window that they had to do it in was, I mean, they were just like working insane hours to get it done.
Yeah.
And weren't really being compensated fairly for the amount of time they were working. And it's no different with CG. I mean, yeah, the technology's there to have phenomenal CG, but if you're rushing people, you can only get so much out of it if you don't have the time to sit and work with it. I think we've seen some good examples in recent years of it and bad. Um, but as far as that goes, like I have some gripes with it. I don't think it ruined the movie. I don't think the CG ruined the movie. I don't think the couple things I could say about the plot or certain characters, but I don't think any of it was movie ruining.
Yeah. And we'll get into that. Like that's the weird thing is like I don't necessarily disagree with what the critics are saying is wrong with the movie. I just disagree with how much it affected my experience. It's like that ruined the
Yeah.
whole movie for you.
That's fair, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I guess let's start our little deep dive then. I mean, I guess let's just tackle kind of the overall thing, plot. Like the big picture. And I'll kind of kick it off. I think for me, the story was intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
I love the like spy espionage thriller kind of feel they were going for, kind of trying to bring it back to Winter Soldier a little bit. I thought that worked well when it was the forefront of the movie. I told you in the theater it started a little slow for me. I understand the thought process they probably had of, let's start it out with this big action sequence and have, Sam storm this like church that's been overtaken by these, bad guys who are there for some kind of deal or whatever. I get that. But first of all, it's been a while since we've seen him, because the last time we saw him was Falcon and Winter Soldier. If you watched it, which you said you didn't even really watch it like that, and I'm sure there are plenty of people who watched it even less because you at least checked it out. So if you didn't see that, the last time you saw him was Endgame, which was like 2019, and this is 2025, so we're talking a 6-year gap.
Yeah.
Even if you kind of have your finger on the pulse of the MCU, maybe you didn't watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but you know that, he kind of really explored becoming Captain America and that and all that. Okay, fine, but it's a little jarring to just start this movie out and it's like boom, and I don't know. I thought it could have benefited from more of a slow build like Winter Soldier. I mean, well, I guess that's not fair because Winter Soldier also started with the. I was thinking about the whole thing where they're like jogging around the. Oh no, I'm right. That is how it starts.
You're thinking of Civil War, I think. Wait, no.
No, yeah. Well, Civil War starts with them like trailing Crossbones or whatever, and that Wanda blows up that building.
Yeah.
Yes, but for a second I was thinking Winter Soldier started out with them on that pirate ship, but actually it does. It starts with them running at like 6 a.m. and Cap keeps going like, on your left, and then Black Widow comes and picks him up, and then they go to the mission. So okay, I was right. So yeah, Winter Soldier starts out with this kind of like, it just kind of slowly brings you into it, and then they just ramp the action up from there every 30 minutes or so. So I think it could have benefited from something like that personally, but other than that, other than me kind of struggling to get into it at the beginning, that scene, which by the way, I mean, I feel like this goes without saying, but definitely spoilers for this movie. We're going to be talking pretty in depth about it. The scene where they go to the White House and the shooting happens with Isaiah or whatever, from there on, it really picked up for me.
Yeah, same here.
And I really enjoyed it from there on.
I didn't expect that at all.
Yeah, me either.
That really came, like, I was like, whoa. And because I thought Isaiah Bradley actually was doing it for a second.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I do kind of wish they would have done that. I mean, I don't know how that interferes with the comics because I don't read the comics. So probably people would have hated it. But just from like a person who loves movies,
right?
I was like hoping that's what it was. I was like, oh, he's a bad guy. Like that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Or the president's a bad guy and he was anyway. Yeah. So that was a really cool scene for me.
Yeah.
I really liked that.
That really got me hooked. And from there, it was kind of just like, all right, here we go. So were your thoughts kind of similar? I mean, was it slow for you at the beginning, or did you kind of did it hook you with that first kind of action sequence that they went through?
I didn't really think it was that slow. I thought the pacing was good. It had a good build. I could see what you're saying though. Like, but I just knew I had seen enough of Falcon and the Winter Soldier to where I felt like I was coming after that. So that probably helped me. But yeah, I mean, overall, I liked the pacing. I thought it was a good build. I was engaged every time, and yeah, I don't know what the format you want to go with for this episode is, but I have some thoughts on what the critics said about like why they disagreed with why they didn't like the film.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's just kind of free flow it.
All right. So a couple of critics, you mentioned it was like a spy espionage type movie, which I thought the same thing, and I liked it. I've heard some critics say, actually quite a few, that they thought that it was a movie that didn't know what it wanted to be. Like, is it a superhero movie? Is it a spy espionage? Is it this? Is it that? I didn't get that sense at all.
I didn't.
It felt like a spy espionage themed superhero movie.
Yeah.
Just like Shang-Chi is like a martial arts themed superhero movie.
Right. Yeah.
You know? I don't know. Like, I didn't hear any reasons for why they thought that.
Yeah.
So Another thing that I heard, these are just things that like I said before, a lot of the things that critics said, I do agree with. They just didn't ruin the movie. But these are the things that I disagreed with.
Right.
Another thing is they said that the villain was just not dynamic enough. We got just another one who wanted revenge, super cheesy motivation. And I was like, all right, this is another thing where people expect too much, I think, because it's like for the entire history of storytelling, villains have had the same kinds of motivations.
Yeah.
Revenge, world domination.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, within the past like 15 to 20 years, everyone's like, we have to have really complex villains who you actually think could be good. And I hate that. Like,
yeah, I do too.
I don't like Thanos was a good villain because he was really interesting and he thought what he was doing was good.
Yeah.
But that's just one kind of villain. There's nothing wrong with a villain who's just evil, who just wants revenge.
Yeah, no, I mean, you have to have a foil for your protagonist.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, what kills me about that is people are whining about that. If we ended up getting like 5 years straight of movies that have these like complex, like, you know, emotionally nuanced villains with their, you know, the things that they're kind of pushing towards being like, you know, it's not black and white. There's kind of a gray area. People would get bored of that. And then they'd want something that's just, why are we always getting these like, why are they always trying to make us feel for the villain? Because you whined about it for a decade and a half. I mean,
well, and I personally don't like it when they try to make you feel for the villain. I do like Thanos was good because I never felt like they were trying to make it seem like he was good. Mm-hmm. Like they were trying to, but they did explain his motivations in a way that made sense, where it's like, okay, I could see why you would think that, but also why don't you just use the stones to create more resources? I mean, it's just, obviously you're an evil tyrant.
Yeah, you just want to kill billions, trillions.
Yeah, right.
But like, and I mean, real quick on that too. Also, every now and then, throw in something like a Civil War, where it's not even a villain and a hero; it's two heroes with differing opinions that are both arguably like I could see that. Like, you know.
No, I was totally cap.
Oh, I was too. I was too. Absolutely. But I'm just saying, like, I think Iron Man was coming from a good place.
Yeah.
I don't agree with it. But I've heard a lot of people, when that movie first came out, I think most people agreed with Iron Man.
Yeah.
And it kind of blew my mind. I was like, what?
Yeah.
But that's the cool thing about it, is there were a lot of people on both sides of that. And that's also intriguing. It doesn't always have to be, you know, like you said, just like classic, oh, I want to take over the world just cuz, or whatever. But it doesn't always have to be this like 5-layer deep thing. I mean, it just sometimes a villain just wants power. It just is what it is.
Exactly. And the villain in Brave New World, it made complete sense why someone like that would want revenge. I mean, what the guy did to him. When the lights come on, you see his brain all jacked up. You're like, yeah, I probably would be feeling some kind of way about that too. So that I understood his motivations. That's all I really need.
Yeah.
And I completely agree. I hate this idea that every villain has to be super complex and morally ambiguous.
And by the way, I'm sorry, do we ever get that? When's the last time we got a villain that, like, their whole thing is that they're just way smarter than everybody?
Yeah, I know.
That to me was interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, sometimes it's kind of fun to see, like, how can you physically beat the physically gifted villain? But sometimes it's cool to just be like, how can you even touch this guy?
Yeah.
Because he's so far ahead.
Yeah.
And he was for the whole movie. That's actually one of my biggest gripes of the movie.
Is how far ahead he was?
No, it's the fact that I think he was undermined as the villain. The leader should have been the villain of this movie.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And I think they did him injustice by throwing Sidewinder in there, who barely did anything. Giancarlo Esposito's character, who was at the beginning, then he meets up with him. He's the one who puts like the hatchet in his gut or whatever when they're fighting in the street. He's cool, but like, either give him his whole own thing, or like just don't waste him in this. I mean, okay, you kind of tied it back into the leader because the leader kind of like used him as a pawn. I could have even been okay with that, but then you also throw in Red Hulk.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on. And again, I get it. The leader that was his whole plan or whatever. That's fine. That's great. But it's just too much. Like, pick
Yeah.
one. Pick a lane and just let that be the thing.
My guess is they're probably trying to set it up for these other villains to, like, the leader's going to come back. He's going to come back.
You're probably right. I hope. I was glad they didn't kill him.
Yeah.
Like they've done so many times in the past with these other villains. But yeah.
Yeah, and that's a part that I would agree with. Like, a lot of critics had that problem. I was like, yeah, I'd agree with it. It just doesn't ruin the movie for me.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a gripe, but I enjoyed it still. I still enjoyed seeing him in it. It was cool to see him in it, and the stuff he did. Like, the mind control thing was a cool take.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't see a lot of stuff like that in the MCU, weirdly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a comic book universe. Mind control is a pretty comic booky concept, but you just don't see a whole lot of it. The last time I remember seeing anything like it was Avengers 2, when Wanda was doing the, mind control on them to make them fight or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
But I don't know. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed him as a villain. I think people, I agree with you, really over romanticizing this whole villain with understandable motive. Like, yeah, sometimes that's nice. I don't need it all the time.
Yeah. I love a good villain that's just bad because he's bad too.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that type of villain.
Absolutely not.
That's been the villain forever.
I mean, are we going to sit here and act like the Joker has good motivation aside from the movie The Joker?
Yeah, I was about to say.
I don't count that. That I'm talking about in the Dark Knight trilogy. Are we going to sit here and act like that Joker, which most people still hold as like the most iconic representation of that character, and I would agree, it's fantastic. He was insane.
Yeah.
He didn't have good, I mean, okay, he was portrayed more as like an anarchist, so it was a little more grounded than like just him straight up being a lunatic like in the comics or whatever. But like he literally talks about in the movie how he has no motive, nothing to buy him. The scene where he gets all that money from the mob, it's like, oh, that's what he wanted, and he burns it.
Yeah.
I mean, the famous line from that movie that Alfred says is, "Some men just want to watch the world burn." He's crazy.
Yeah.
But that he's held as like the best portrayal of that villain. Sometimes it could just be that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Or what about Ozai from Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Yeah, he just wants to rule the world.
Yeah.
There's no reason. No one wronged him. He grew up rich and he had friends, and he was even friends with the Avatar of his time. And yeah, no, I mean, that's another great example.
Wasn't. His grandfather Sozin was.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Sozin. Sorry, I got that mixed up. But
I mean, yeah, and Sozin, he just got power hungry. He was just like, you know what? I think we should expand the empire.
Right.
And there's no complex like motives there, but that's actually realistic. People get like that when they get in powerful positions.
Greed is a human thing.
Right.
Yeah, if anything, you are humanizing your villain sometimes by just letting them be human and be like, there's no reason for this. I just want it.
Yep.
There's plenty of everyday people who are doing just fine in life, and then they're like, I'm going to make this huge change in my life because I just want more money. I don't need it. I'm doing okay, but I want more. So I agree with you on that. It's actually a really good point. But yeah, I wrote down a couple things just to kind of like things I wanted to make sure I touched on. So to kind of switch over, something I like, we were talking about like the CG and stuff, and I said I had good and bad on that, so I guess we'll kind of do both. But and feel free to, I don't know if you had anything specific on this, but feel free to jump in as well. But although they didn't flat out address it, which I guess they didn't have to. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but the Red Hulk gives off heat.
Oh.
The like the Bruce Banner's like Green Hulk, the angrier he gets, the bigger he gets, and like the stronger. The Red Hulk, the angrier he doesn't get any bigger. The angrier he gets, the hotter he gets. Like there are times where his whole body is like on fire. And actually that's been some ways that he's been defeated in the past, has been like they just make him angrier and angrier and angrier by like, annoying him by trying to attack him and stuff to the point
like, I'm not touching you.
Yeah. I got your nose. To the point where like he overheats and like basically I guess passes out and then turns back into Ross. But I loved that even though they didn't like I say flat out address it, they're like they had all these little details of like you see in certain spots where he steps on stuff and the things under his feet burn away, or like the shots where it was like kind of looking at him and you could see over his shoulder there was like the heat like radiate like the wavy air, like radiating off of him. I thought that was really cool CG details that they put in there, and he looked phenomenal.
Yeah, he did.
That was the best I've seen a Hulk look since maybe Avengers 2. I mean, Ragnarok was okay. You barely see him in Infinity War, and I didn't love what they did with him in Endgame, but I think that was the coolest a Hulk has looked in a while. He looked really good. The She-Hulk show, I mean,
we don't speak of that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you don't like
She-Hulk looked terrible in that.
She didn't look
CGI.
She didn't look great. The Hulk didn't either, and my goodness, his son at the end looked atrocious.
I didn't even see his son at the end.
Well, yeah,
I didn't even watch the show. I'm just talking about from the trailers I saw.
Yeah, they introduced his son at the end. Like basically, you find he goes back away like into space at the beginning of the show because he gets some news, and you find out at the end that I guess when he was on Sakaar for all those years, stuck in Hulk form, he had a son.
Oh,
and I forget what his name is, but at the end of She-Hulk, the last episode, he comes back and he's got his son with him, and he's like a probably teenage-ish-esque like Hulk.
Interesting.
He looked terrible, and
that's an ugly baby.
Yeah, that was an ugly baby. No, he looked awful, but anyway, yeah, none of them looked great in that show. Aside from Daredevil with his yellow and red costume, that was pretty sick. But other than that, but yeah, I thought they did Red Hulk pretty good. One thing I will say, I did not love with the CG is like I'm so sick of Marvel. I don't know what their gripe is about shooting on location. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I understand there have been things in the past where there have been leaks. I get it. It's impossible to avoid it, especially if you're shooting just out in the public. Like, people are going to see stuff. I understand. But is it worth your movies getting absolutely panned because they look bad? If you're not going to shoot on location, you have to take the time. You have to take the time to at least make the shot look real. In Civil War, it blew my mind when I found out that they were not really on a tarmac for that fight. I thought they were legitimately outside for that fight. And then come to find out, you see the behind the scenes, and they're just a bunch of green screen and like boxes and stuff for different levels of things. Like, none of it was real, but it looked real. So I had no gripe with that. Captain America Brave New World, that scene at the end or near the end, when Sam is talking to the leader outside of the hospital.
Yeah.
The background and then the way he's like the way they have his like edges of his body it looked awful.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked so fake. It pulled me out of the movie. It looked so bad. I was like, oh my gosh, are they not really there? It's just a hospital. I mean, do you know how many hospitals they could just go film at for like 15, 20 minutes to get that one scene? I mean, I was just like, what?
Yeah.
It looked awful. That really bugs me. Like, there's not much I'm going to complain about CG because it's in every movie. So, all these people who make that their like make or break thing, I'm like, whatever. Like, I do appreciate people who try and still do some practical stuff. I think that's a lost art these days, and I think it can really benefit what you're doing. But, I'm not going to hold it against people who use it because everyone does. But gosh, it's got to look good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to look at least decent, man. They look terrible. Did you notice that?
Not to the extent that you did, but I did notice that it looked weird. I couldn't I thought it was like an effect they were doing or something, and I was like, I don't get what they're going for here, but it looks strange.
I didn't either. Like, it almost looked like dreamy. Almost.
Yeah,
like
it
was like
did.
the background was really blurry but bright, and then him standing there was so hard and focused that like his edges were like really like emphasized or something. I don't know. I did not like that. Oh no.
They know it's fake now. They know this is just a podcast.
The walls just like fall down around, and
People who are just listening are like, "What? What happened?"
we're still in the theater. We're frauds.
You just hear someone, "Guys, I told you to get out of here. Get out of my theater
And take your walls with you."
Oh man.
But nah, yeah. I mean that really bothered me. I was like, oh my gosh, that looks so ugly.
I have a theory that CGI artists are burned out because everything. And this is, I know I could be totally off about this, but it's just because everything is CGI now. It's almost like they're like, if we can do it CGI, we will. And
Right.
it was like the opposite in Lord of the Rings era type
Right.
film because CGI wasn't as developed. So they were like, all right, what can we do on the front end to make this look as real as possible? And then we'll put on the finishing touches in CGI,
Right.
You know, which obviously like Smeagol, for instance, he was completely CGI. He had to be, but he looked great.
Yeah.
But like in
Oh,
Lord
yeah.
of the Rings, like the cities are all miniatures. Like they actually built the Shire. They built the whole thing, and they built 2 sizes for every home that they had to film in. One to film Gandalf in, and one to film the Hobbits in, so it looked smaller.
Right.
And everything was exactly like the little forks on the table. Every decoration was made one size and one exactly scaled down to another size. I mean,
See, that's phenomenal.
I know.
Or like stuff like you think about. I'm sure if you haven't, I'll be shocked. Have you ever seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's it's an older movie. I would assume maybe like 80s, maybe 90s, but I think like 80s.
Is that another comedy honorable mention that you forgot?
I don't know. It's a great movie. I don't know if I'd put it as like a comedy honorable mention, but it is really good. But it's kind of like Space Jam, but I think it was before Space Jam. I think it might have been one of the first movies to like do this on a big scale, where they took animated characters and mixed them with live action actors. And you watch like the behind the scenes of how that director approached that movie and the things they did to like give it the feel that these animated characters were really there affecting the set. Dude, it's crazy. It's so cool. The stuff the links they went to give it like a real tangible effect.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man, like stuff like I said, and you kind of said, it's just a lost art. I just really think there needs to be some movement of directors going back to that.
Yeah. Well, and the reason I think it means that CGI artists are burned out is because before you had all different kinds of teams. You had the teams who were building the sets and trying to make it look as real as possible on the front end, and then the CGI artists who were just tightening that up and making it, putting the finishing touches on it.
Right.
And now it's like, it's just CGI artists. They're doing everything, and it's the same thing, just sitting at a desk, like really tedious, annoying. I mean, I'm sure people who do it love it, but I could imagine that getting really old. It's like, I gotta create graphics for this entire city and the characters in here. It's like,
and what they do, and then whenever they hit something, it's got to do this.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, no, man, I can't imagine. I really can't imagine the amount of time and effort it takes to create one scene.
Mm-hmm.
Like one quick clip of like Iron Man getting thrown into a car, just the clip of him hitting the car, how long that would take.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's crazy. I remember seeing, I can't remember if it was the movie Safe with Jason Statham, or if it was one of the Bourne, like one of the original 3 Bourne movies. But one of those has this like crazy car chase scene in it. And there's this one part where whoever the main character, whatever movie it was, they're driving and they drive up, and then, or it might have been The Italian Job, because that has a crazy car stuff in it too.
Fantastic movie.
Yeah. Great.
Love that movie.
Anyway, they're like driving away through this chase, and they drive up an alley and out through it, out into this busy street. And they like drive out, and then as the car chasing them is coming, a bus comes by and smashes into it in the street. And it's completely practical. The whole thing. I think they were even on a real street. And they had they only had enough budget to do it once. So they had to rig this thing up to where almost like as the bus went forward, it like through a pulley system pulled the car through the alley to where it would hit at the right time.
Wow.
I mean, it was crazy. It was really, really cool to like learn that not only was it real, but that they had to figure out, we can only do this once. We got to make sure it hits.
Yeah.
And they had cameras all over it to make sure any angle they could possibly want of it, they got. Like, it was really cool. Stuff like that's neat to me.
Yeah.
Like, that's really, really cool.
Now it would just be CGI.
Oh, yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why the Mission Impossible franchise is one of the best action franchises out there. Because he does all of his stunts for real.
Yeah.
And I'm
Tom Cruise is kind of insane.
He's a lunatic, and I love him.
So funny, just quick on that. Oh, man. You're always ahead of me. Like, you always know.
I am the leader.
We finish each other's.
What?
Anyway.
Drinks?
Yeah. No, that when the last one was coming out, not the new one, but I think part one of the kind of 2-part ending that they're doing right now. When the first part was coming out, and in every movie you'd go into, there was this little promotional like teaser they were doing for it, where it wasn't really a trailer, but it was just them showing them like setting up for him doing one of the stunts where he like rides a bike off of a cliff, and he's doing it like multiple times, testing it out with like a bike, and riding off this ramp and like ripping a parachute while he like falls or whatever. And every time he would like go to do it, he would like jump off, like, you know, spread his arms and stuff. And my wife and I went to so many like movies around that time because we love going to the theater. I have this game we got on our honeymoon called Blockbuster. I don't know if you've ever played it.
No.
It's really fun.
I thought you were making a joke like about Blockbuster, the old movie store, and I just wasn't catching it.
No. It's a real game we picked up at either like a Barnes and Noble or Books A Million or something on our honeymoon, called Blockbuster, and it's a thing where there's like this huge deck of cards, and they're all different genres. You got comedy, sci-fi, animation, drama, classical film, and like I think 2 or 3 other ones. And so your goal is to get one of every genre of movie. The first team to do it wins the game. But you get these cards and you draw 6 of them each round, which you get to determine who gets to draw them by doing a head-to-head, where you pick these like head-to-head cards, and it'll be like a movie with a dog. And then like you would name like a movie, then I would, and then you would, then I would. And there's like a timer buzzer, and each time you name one, you hit it, it resets it, and then I have until the timer goes off. Whoever can't name one before the timer goes off, the other person's the winner.
Oh.
They get to draw 6 cards.
Or if you like guess a wrong movie.
Yeah, if you say something wrong, it ends. You draw the 6 cards, and then you get 3 categories. 1 word, where you can use 1 word to describe the movie. Charade, where you can only use like body movements and charade stuff to do it. And then quote, where you can describe the movie with a quote from it. And you get to pick out of the 6 cards which movies you want to put where, and then you give the other person the other 3. So you get first pick of the movies. They get the probably harder ones. And then there's strategy to it too, like which ones do you still need, or are you trying to keep ones from them or whatever. And then they lay theirs out, and then you get, I think, a minute. You get 60 seconds to go through your 3 categories, doing your 1 word, your quote, and your charade, and your team gets to guess. Well, my wife and I, with some other people, were playing one night, and she was on my team, and one of the cards for action was Mission Impossible, and I put it in charades, and I just went like this, and she guessed it immediately, and everyone at the table was like, are they cheating? Because no one else got it. No one else was like, how did you get that from Mission Impossible from that?
Yeah.
But it was from that little trailer thing.
Yeah.
Because he's a nut. And he is so awesome for still doing that. How old is he?
I think he's pushing 70.
Nuh-uh.
I think so.
He's in his 60s? Tom Cruise?
I think he is. You're acting so
that,
shocked.
That baffles me. I would have guessed
look it up right
50s.
now. Tom Cruise age. Scientology, man. That's the answer. Yeah, he's 63.
That is insane.
Yeah.
This dude hung from a cargo plane for this new movie.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Yeah, I know. I thought you were initially talking about the episode 5, and movie number 5, and I was like, well, that was years ago. But yeah, he does hang from a cargo plane.
Yeah.
For this movie, it's crazy.
He's insane.
He is.
But yeah, I mean, more stuff like that. It just, man, I wish I could think of more modern examples that have done it. I mean, I know
It's hard, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I know I've gushed about this show a lot on here, but it's phenomenal, and this is just another reason it is. Severance is real big about that.
Oh, okay.
Ben Stiller has come out and said, like, they go out of their way to try and do every scene that they can with as little CG as possible. Not only just for the ease of just it all being in camera, because there is some more easiness to that. I mean, it's harder to get the film and then like piece it together, but like it's easier in post because you just have everything. Like you said, it's just like touching it up. It's not creating it.
Post was always supposed to be that. It was supposed to be to make up for what you can't do in person.
Right.
Now it's become a replacement.
It's become a whole art. Like, not that it wasn't an art before, but it's been like a creating it kind of art. Like you're starting from scratch and here, just build this whole scene, like you said.
This is a little bit off topic, but this is honestly one of the gripes I have with the way music has progressed in the last 10 to 15 years, because it's become more about the producer than the actual musician. Like,
that's fair.
I actually am, like, I'm very anti pitch correction and autotune, and if you say that in the industry, everyone laughs at you, like you're like pegged as like an amateur, because they go, oh no, another person who doesn't understand how pitch correction works. I understand how it works completely. I know it can't make a dying cat sound like it's singing, like Michael Jackson, but it can make an average singer sound better. And the reason that it's so popular is because producers who produce people's music feel like if they put out someone who can't sing very well, then that's on them. And it's like, but in my opinion, the producer's job is supposed to be able to make the musician shine. Like you're supposed to be able to make so you can hear all the music, capture the essence of what the artist is trying to create.
Yeah.
It's not really about the producer necessarily.
Yeah.
And it's like if they don't sing that well, that's on them. That shouldn't be on you.
Yeah.
And the fact that what you're actually doing is you're I don't know. And this is I could talk forever about this, and this is not the topic of today, so I'm just gonna stop there. But just another thought. It was like, it seems like things are getting things that were made to be like come alongside the actual thing that you're doing are now becoming
they were meant to be supportive, and now they've become supplementary.
Exactly. Yeah. That was really great word choices there, Chris.
I appreciate
that.
Like I said, we finish each other's
clothes.
All right. We'll get there.
That sounds weird. I don't even know what that means. It's just the first word that popped in my
Daniel,
head.
bring me those shirts. I got to finish them. All right.
We have a side hustle where we sew things.
Yeah.
Anyway, were you finished with your last thought? I don't want to.
Yeah, I'm ready. We can move on to whatever. I definitely wanted to touch on the CG in the movie, the good and the bad. There was some of both, but yeah, I'm pretty much wrapped up on that. If you got something.
It's also kind of interesting that the Red Hulk looked so good, but that one scene looked so bad. Like that's kind of Maybe they were like they forgot about that scene. And they're like, oh crap, we got to do that scene. The movie's coming out tomorrow.
Throw it in. Maybe. I mean, I just don't know anymore. I really don't, because it happens so much anymore.
Well, I really thought I could capture the thought and save it, but I didn't. But I do remember now. There's a couple things that I would like to say that I agree with the critics on some things. I just don't think it ruins the movie for me. But there are issues with the film that I think should be addressed. One of the problems, we talked about this after watching it. Probably the biggest problem that most people had with it was that the Red Hulk in the trailers was pushed in all of their promotional material. He was in every trailer. He was in every poster and stuff. And then, so the audience was anticipating him showing up early, but he was the main villain. Like, that was the big finale, was him. And so they spoiled the entire ending. And I think, yeah, I mean, but I agree. They shouldn't have done that. That was a little annoying because when I realized Hulk, about a quarter of the way into the movie, I was starting to think, okay, I guess Hulk is going to be the big surprise or whatever. And I was like, I don't know why they did that, but it didn't ruin the movie for me. It was like, yeah, they shouldn't have done that. But
I'm not going to lie. If anything ruined the movie for me, it was that.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably the worst thing.
Because the thing is, they went like out of their way to hide the leader. Like, there's a trailer.
That's true.
There's a trailer where it's the scene where they go to that like military compound. Mm-hmm. They're like breaking into it to like get information.
Mm-hmm.
And it's where Sam and whatever the guy's name who is annoying who plays Falcon now. I could not stand him.
Oh yeah, I thought you meant Anthony Mackie. But you're talking about the new Falcon.
Yeah, the new one.
Yeah,
I
did not like the new Falcon.
I do not like him either. Which we'll talk about it, but it was where they were breaking into that place to get more information, and it's where they first see the leader in the movie. They show that clip in the trailer of him like walking towards them through the shadows, like before he turns the light on and you see him. And in the movie, even without the light on, you see like the green flashes in his eyes, and you can kind of tell something's funky about him. Mm-hmm. And in the trailer, unless I'm just completely mistaken, and I could be, but Marvel also has been known to do this, so I don't think I'm wrong. They edited it to where it just looks like a dude walking towards them in the shadows, like it just a normal shaped head, no green in his eyes, nothing. So it's like they went out of their way to hide him, but he's there throughout like a good chunk of the movie, and they went out of their way to promote Red Hulk, and he's only there for like 15 minutes maybe. And to me, that was completely backwards. I think you should have really went hard on promoting the leader. First of all, it would have kind of sparked up interest as far as like, oh man, they're bringing something back from Incredible Hulk. Like, that's crazy. That's awesome. And like really let all the promotional like material like really creep people out with him, because he had a real creepy aura about him and his voice. He did such a good job with that character. And just like have all these little clips of like him sitting in the shadows watching, and just, you don't even got to show him fully, just show like the green flashes in his eyes and the big head and all that, and leave Red Hulk out of it.
Yeah.
That way, even if people who were like diehards are like suspecting that it could go there, by the end of the movie, when it happens, it's more like a reward than like oh, finally.
Yeah.
And I told you that night we left the theater, is that one of my theories is that I think personally a lot of the critics hated this movie so much because they were ahead of it the whole time.
Yeah.
As an audience member, Red Hulk is going to show up. It's just a matter of when. And so when it feels like this movie is kind of building and building and building and building towards something, and then all of a sudden all it is a reveal that you know about, yeah, that's kind of a letdown.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to me talking about the leader being sort of undermined, I just think his role should have been bigger in the film. Maybe take Sidewinder out completely. And it does make sense for him to kind of be controlling Red Hulk, because that's kind of the leader's whole thing, is that he's like, as strong as the Hulk is, that's how smart he is. So like it does make sense that he would be able to control a Hulk.
Yeah.
That's kind of his whole thing in the show. Like he controls Abomination, is like his henchman and stuff like that. So that, all that makes sense. But I really, really hated that it's like they chose a guaranteed big opening weekend over a genuinely cool surprise at the end of the movie. I don't know what all these movie like companies' issue is with just having a surprise in a movie anymore. Every single time there is one, that movie blows up because everyone on the internet's like, "Oh my gosh, this big twist thing! You got to go see it."
Yeah.
But it's like they never learned that, like, that maybe your first weekend won't be the best, but like overall over the 4 or 5 weeks that it's going to play, it's going to make you a ton of money because then people want to go be part of that.
Yeah.
I can't wrap my mind around that one, even as like a business decision. It just doesn't make sense.
It especially makes no sense as a business move.
Right. You kind of tanked your own movie because this is one of the main reasons people are trashing it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
No, that's one of the biggest complaints I've seen from people.
But
I think that's more of a promotional issue than it is an issue with the film.
Yeah,
itself.
no, absolutely. I agree 100%. That, like we just said, that was a poor business decision. That's not on the actors. It's not on the directors. It's not on anything to do the writers. They all handled it well. All the kind of like, I mean, I guess you could call it subtle. As someone who saw it coming from a mile away, even without it being in the trailer, it probably wasn't that subtle, but the subtle, quote unquote, hints of like him slowly getting more and more angry throughout the movie and stuff. I mean, it coming from his medication was an interesting twist that I didn't expect because I'm pretty sure in the comics it's always happened by like him trying to experiment on ways that he could like finally get strong enough to just beat the Hulk. So it was never like a thing of he had to get tricked into doing it. He was just like so determined that it kind of destroyed his life. And by the way, one other gripe I had, and it still deals with the Red Hulk. I hate how Sam beat him at the end.
Oh, really?
Hated that.
That's another problem that most people had.
Hated that.
It sounds like, for people who are listening and watching, it sounds like we hated the movie because we're just agreeing with a lot of the critics right now. But
well, you've said it the best. We agree with a lot of it.
Yeah.
But it didn't ruin the movie for me.
Yeah.
I still had gripes though. It's far from a perfect film.
Right. Yeah. But that's kind of where I am too. It's like I think we'll talk about what we liked about it too after this, but
no, we won't.
Okay. That makes sense. So, okay, well, explain that, because I think that's going to actually bleed into another criticism that I agree with as well, but I'm curious, what about the way he beat him did you not like?
Okay, so a couple things on this. So, first of all, they kind of did the same thing twice in the fight, but the first time they played it off as like a joke, which was fine. And then the second time, well, not really played off as a joke, but it was kind of funny of like how quickly it didn't work. He tried to talk him down once, and it did not work. And I was like, yeah, it's on. Like, and like I told you, in the comics, a lot of times, the Red Hulk, like, they have to beat him by like getting him overheated.
Yeah.
There were so many different ways I could have seen this playing out to make it better or make it make more sense. So, option number one, Anthony Mackie is fighting the Hulk, getting his absolute butt kicked. He's starting to run out of tech just like he did in the film. Like he was holding his own, but then he kind of started slowly falling more and more behind, which makes sense. Actually, it really doesn't make sense at all that a normal person could do anything against the Hulk. But I'm going to give him the fact that A, it's a comic book film. B, he's wearing vibranium armor.
Yeah.
And C, let's just say he's really, really skilled. Okay, fine. So he's been there, done that. He's fought, aliens and stuff. I'll give it to him. He's fighting him. He starts falling more and more behind. And just like when it looks like he's about to die or like catch the final blow, a shockwave comes through and sends the Hulk like toppling back like yards, like 100 yards. And you look up and the Green Hulk is standing there with his hands like this, and he just
that would have been
clapped
so
him.
Epic.
That not only would have, you could have done the overheating thing because they could, then the Hulks could have fought while Anthony and whoever else, Sam, Cap, whatever, figured out how to like assist and just like overwhelm him to the point where he overheats and passes out. And then on top of that, it wouldn't have mattered that you showed Red Hulk in the film because then you can say, well, the surprise was that the Hulk shows up to help.
Yeah.
Because no one would have known that was coming. So that's option one. Option two,
And I just say really quick.
Go ahead.
If they would have done that, they could have made up for Endgame too, because in Endgame, Hulk never I wanted to see Professor Hulk fight Thanos and get a rematch and like have the brains and the muscle put together.
Yeah.
They could have given that to us in this film if they would have done that, because then he could have fought Red Hulk but been smart and just as strong. That would have been cool.
So
what was your next thing?
Option 2, if you still wanted to go the route of, well, we're not going to do the overheating thing, we're going to maybe keep that in the tank or whatever. Okay, fine. You want to calm him down. You've already gone out of your way to show Betty Ross from The Incredible Hulk and let us hear her voice. The whole premise of Cap getting him to calm down on that street was that he was on the street that he used to take Betty to look at the cherry blossoms or whatever he called it. I think it was cherry blossoms. Those trees.
Mm-hmm.
Just do what Hulk shows and comics and movies and everything else have done for years and have Betty come up and calm him down.
That's what I was expecting was going to happen.
That would have made so much more sense.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been so much less corny than having Cap do it. And also it would have made it just a little more relevant to have her. It would have made the emotional moment of them talking when he's in the raft hit a little more, because she came to help him like not destroy things. And it's kind of poetic because this relationship that they've had all these years that has been so rocky because she loves Bruce and her dad refuses to see anything other than the monster, but she sees beyond the monster to someone she loves. So to have her show up to her own dad and be like, I see past the monster and I see my dad, and calm him down, like it would have hit so many levels of like storytelling.
Yeah.
But instead, we get the little voice cameo with her on the phone, and then at the very end, she like pops up when he's already in the raft.
That's the thing that I didn't understand, is if you're going to have her show up anyway, why wouldn't you have her show up then?
Right.
Like, I thought maybe they couldn't get the actress or something.
Right.
But it's like, no, she showed up at the end.
Yeah.
So why not just put her? Yeah, I agree with that.
To me, both of those better options of how that fight could have ended, rather than him for the second time try and talk him down. But this time it works because of the street they're on.
Yeah. Well, they're on the same street. He brought him to the cherry blossoms and tried to talk him down, and then what he did was he exploded him with vibranium with like the and I guess that rattled him enough to where now he could talk him down. I think that's what they were going for, but I agree, I didn't like that, because I thought that when he started talking him down again, I'm like, wait, so it's just gonna work now? Like,
yeah.
You said you had 3 options, right? Or was it just those 2?
I mean, there's different variations of some of them. Like, I mean, there's, like, for example, there was a combo one that I thought of like, you have Hulk show up to fight him, and then you still have Betty show up and she calms them both down. There was one that I was thinking of like, you know, I had told some people that I thought it would have been cool during Endgame if after the Avengers compound got attacked, if the Hulk that jumped out of the wreckage would have been Gray Hulk instead of the Smart Hulk. Because Gray Hulk was one that in like the cartoon, I remember him being like, he was kind of like a mobster. Like, he was smart enough to talk still, like he still had some intelligence about him. But like he was not like Smart Hulk where he was all proper and stuff. He was a little more on the brutish side. So he had more strength and like a little more brute like aura about him than the Smart Hulk. But he wasn't a complete monster either. Like, he still could conduct himself. And I thought that would have been cool if that version of him jumped out from the wreckage and then helped fight Thanos. So I was thinking you could have Gray Hulk. Like, maybe he's behind the scenes still been trying to mess with this combination of like, you know, I need to be able to be a little bit more of a protector, but like I still need to be able to operate. And maybe he's found the Gray Hulk thing. Or I mean, there was just so many things I think you could have done to change that. Like, that's just one thing I can't quite get over. And again, like we said, and I'm gonna keep emphasizing it because I enjoy these movies, and I'm one of those people who feels like you should just enjoy these for what they are. Yeah, they're not, you know, most of these movies are not like super deep, you know, nuanced like emotional film. I mean, they're comic book movies. Some of them can be that.
Mm-hmm.
I think Logan was up there with that. You would probably argue Endgame was up there with that. Just the way they closed these storylines, these decade-long
Not quite to
things.
that level. I mean, it was epic.
Well, I mean, yeah, it was epic, but you know, I mean, I think some of these can be up there with that. But this, you know, this is an example of one that wasn't, and that's fine. I don't hold that against it, but you know, at the same time, good storytelling is just good storytelling, and I think they could have changed a couple things there.
I agree. Yeah, I think, and this is the last thing I'll say that I agree with. Well, two things. One of them is a lot of people I've heard say there's no Captain America for me other than Steve Rogers. I've heard that people say that a lot. It's like, if that was how you felt, then you knew you weren't going to like this movie going into it.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's kind of predetermining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I don't necessarily I kind of wish that, I don't mind him passing on the shield, but I kind of wish he would have had a different name because he's not Captain America. Maybe something different than Falcon, or it could have just been Falcon. I don't know. I mean, why not just stay the Falcon, but you're just taking over Captain America's role and what he does. But that's not a ruiner for me. And it's like, all right. I mean, I knew that they were doing that going in, so I've accepted it. It's like, yeah, I don't love it, but
right.
So it's like, if that's your opinion, you wanted this movie to fail. Like if you're telling me that from the very beginning, it's like you're looking for things to be upset about.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think that's a lot of the reason why a lot of people have such negative views is I think not most people, but there's a growing strain of, if that's the right word, of people who want the MCU to fail because they're just frustrated with it, and for like all kinds of cultural reasons, storyline reasons, like what we brought up. And I think people are going into these movies now with like they're expecting bad, and they're like secretly happy when they get it because it's more stuff to complain about. That's just my 2 cents. But
no, I could see that. I'm sure there is a group like that.
Yeah, but the other thing, one criticism I've heard that I agreed with, and I thought this while I was watching the movie too. Once again, didn't ruin the movie for me, but they alluded to so much Hulk stuff. Like the leader is a Hulk villain, Red Hulk is a Hulk villain, and the Hulk wasn't in it. It was like they took all of the Hulks. Like Captain America didn't even fight a Captain America villain. 90% of the movie was dealing with Hulk things. But it was Falcon, the old Falcon, Anthony Mackie's character.
Yeah.
What's his name? His character's name? Not
Sam Wilson.
Sam Wilson. That's it. Yeah. It was Sam Wilson fighting them, and the way they could have solved that is if Hulk had shown up at the end to help him with Red Hulk. That would have been awesome.
Yeah.
So I completely agree. Like it's like, yeah, I kept thinking, all right, Hulk has got to show up at some point. I mean, they're alluding to Hulk 1, like the first Hulk movie. They showed clips of him fighting Abomination.
Yeah.
And I was like, that made me think that, oh, they're hinting that Hulk's going to show up. Like this is going to be, and they leaned so heavy on the Hulk storylines. So that was a promise that they didn't deliver on, I think.
That's fair. I mean, you know, I've kind of learned with these, especially after like Endgame was probably the first example of me getting my hopes really, really high up for certain things, and it just didn't deliver.
Yeah.
And then from there, I've just had that happen so many times with like Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness was another interesting one that did that. There was probably a couple others, but which is why Spider-Man No Way Home was such a big surprise for me. It was because there were all these like rumors for all these movies before it that just nothing even came close to being the real, like what they really did.
Yeah.
That by the time No Way Home was coming out, you know, after Endgame, and it was like, oh, they're bringing back the Spider-Man. I was like, no, they're not.
Yeah.
No, they're not. Just stop. Please stop. And when it actually ended up happening, it was like, holy crap, they're bringing back the Spider. That's amazing. Like, that's so cool. But, you know, for a movie like this, yeah, I would have loved to have seen the Hulk in it. I would have never expected to, because I've just tried to stop expecting things from these at a certain point. I've kind of just made the decision, and I think this is kind of where everyone needs to be at this point. We're more than a decade into this. We're close to 2 decades, 20 years. We're just a few years away from being 20 years into the MCU. And you said the other day, is like, what, 36? You said some number. I don't remember. I don't even know if that's accurate or not.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
It's 30 plus movies.
Yeah.
And definitely probably closer to 40 something, 50 something if you include like the Disney Plus shows and things like that are all canon. It's so much content. The bottom line is, I think we're just at a point where I think Marvel knows that they're not putting out their best stuff right now. I think they are trying to get back on track. I think this movie was a step in the right direction. I don't think it was perfect, and I think it's far from their peak of like what they've put out, but it's better than what they've been putting out the last 5 or so years.
Mm-hmm.
To me, this movie was probably better than Eternals, even though I'm someone who liked Eternals. I know a lot of people didn't, but most people didn't. I enjoyed it. I think this movie was better than that. I think this movie's highs were stronger than Shang-Chi and Doctor Strange 2. I think this movie in general is better than Black Widow, which was a movie I also probably liked more than most people did, but I never could get over the changing of like Taskmaster's whole like identity and like his skill set and everything, and just could never get over that. But so I mean, all in all, this movie was a step in the right direction for me. They're trying to get back to this feel of like these are connected by like opening up the whole, okay, let's finally address the celestial in the ocean. Oh, and at the same time, it's made of adamantium, so we're getting closer to the mutants and the X-Men, which is cool. The whole premise of this movie starts out with the president wants Cap to start the new Avengers, so we're getting a new Avengers team coming, so we're probably going to be seeing a lot of pieces of that start falling together, which is going to be cool. I had written a couple other things that I think it touched on. And yeah, the post-credit scene where the leader was very obviously talking to Cap to kind of warn him that like Secret Wars is coming, people. Like, I mean,
yeah,
it's just to a point where it's like, if you want to enjoy where we're going, like where we're headed, you're just going to have to be on the ride for what gets there. Because if you're not, then you're going to be so confused when Secret Wars comes out that you won't even enjoy that if it's a perfect movie. If it's the perfect movie, you won't really enjoy it because you won't know where it's all coming from. So, like, my thing is, I made the decision a while back that, like, look, I don't love all of these, and I do pick and choose what I watch. Most of the films I try and see. The shows I've gotten more picky with because, A, I've found they don't have quite as heavy an impact as I thought they would so far, and 2, I haven't loved even the ones I thought I would love. Echo was okay, but I never finished it. She-Hulk kind of was, I was expecting more.
We don't speak of She-Hulk.
Well, sorry, it's the second time I've broken your rule. It kind of let me down by the end. Moon Knight, dude, I was so hyped when I found out we were getting a Moon Knight show, and I ended up I don't think I even ever watched the finale of it. Like, I was just like, oh my gosh, it was okay, but it wasn't great. Loki was great. The first season of Loki was phenomenal. Second season, I've actually heard really good things about also, but I never did watch it. All these things, like, and it kind of all started with WandaVision, what is another example of one that I had all these crazy high hopes for what they were going to do with it, and then they did none of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, that was a huge letdown. Wasn't even that I think the show was actually really good, but it let me down because they didn't do all these things I kind of had these expectations for.
I didn't like how heavily they leaned on the witch stuff in that show.
I mean, yeah, I did kind of expect, but I knew a little bit more about Agatha than you probably did going into it.
Yeah.
I actually never knew the Scarlet Witch was that genuinely witch based.
Yeah, that was my thing. Is
I thought she was more just a mutant, and that was just her name.
Exactly.
But through that show and like doing my digging on YouTube and stuff and learning about like Agatha and stuff, yeah, she's a pretty like legitimately witch based character. I didn't love that either, but I more liked the whole like we're going through the decades of sitcoms and like the creepy aspect of like
that was
it's
cool.
Glitch, like her reality's glitching. That was my favorite part of that show.
I agree.
And like what these things meant, and she kept seeing these things from the outside creep in, but they would manifest in different ways in the little bubble. Like stuff like that it was really cool. And I was really hooked on trying to solve the mystery of that show. And then it didn't really stick the landing for me. Although I did like the Vision versus Vision fight at the end. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But all that to say, they've had some missteps. I don't think anyone's arguing that. I think most people, if they're arguing anything, would be trying to argue the opposite. They've had some missteps. I think they're trying to correct it. I think Feige's trying to get the ship back, on the right path here. And this is a step. It's not there yet, but it's a step. I think Fantastic Four is going to be even better. Like that movie looks genuinely really promising. And I think there's going to be probably 2 post-credit scenes attached with that. And I think they're both probably going to be extremely impactful. If I had to guess, as of right now, we're in February, so we've got, when does that come out? Let's say July. So we've got 5 months. 5 months. We've only got 1 trailer right now for that movie, so I have nothing to go off of. But if I had to guess right now, I think there's going to be 2 post-credit scenes. I think the first one is going to have something to do with we're going to catch up with Cap, either holding like tryouts or a meeting or something for the new Avengers. And I think we're going to see a lot of familiar faces. I think we're going to see Shang-Chi. I think we're going to see Spider-Man. I think Doctor Strange will be in there. Like, I think we're going to see a lot of new faces. Either that or it'll be kind of a variety of that where it's Miss Marvel and the new Hawkeye. I forget her name.
Haley Steinfeld.
Yeah, Kate. I think it's Kate something. Anyway, Kate Bishop. Miss Marvel and Kate Bishop holding some kind of thing for the Young Avengers, because at the end of the Marvels, it was very clear that she went to Kate Bishop to be like, I have a proposition for pulling the whole Nick Fury thing from Iron Man 1, and they're clearly about to start up the Young Avengers. So I think we're going to see one or both of those in some capacity of that. And then I think the other one, because it looks to me like that movie is going to center around Galactus being the villain, which is cool. That's fine. So I think the second post-credit scene is going to have to do with our first glimpse of Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom in the MCU, which both of those are going to be massively impactful post-credit scenes for like where things are going, because both of those have to do with Secret Wars. I know when we were leaving the theater, I told you we probably really need to do an episode at some point where I just like break down Secret Wars for you, like the comic book side of it, because it's on a scale you probably couldn't even believe. Like, if they can pull these 2 movies off, I will say the Russo brothers have to go down as like top 5 directors of all time, because if people thought Endgame and Infinity War were impressive, which they were, juggling like 60 plus characters in a movie is insane. This is going to be even bigger. Like, I mean, you go back to like any Marvel thing that's ever come out, there's and probably some we haven't even seen yet. Like, you're probably going to see versions of characters in live action for the first time in these movies, like fighting versions of themselves that we have seen. Like, it's oh man, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be really, really, really crazy.
I'm looking forward to it. I completely agree with your sentiment that it's like it's a step. This movie was a step in the right direction, and that's kind of how I took it.
Yeah.
Because I was the same as you. I didn't have high expectations because the MCU's kind of been in a slump.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, let's see if we're making any movement. And this movie, the amount of Hulk stuff, like I said, if they wanted it to be a fantastic movie, they should have put Hulk in there.
I agree.
But all the Hulk stuff that they're calling back to things from the first Hulk, which came out 20-something years ago.
Yeah.
That's exciting to me. I'm like, wow, they're still digging stuff up that they have been building up for decades.
Yeah.
That was the impressive thing to me about Infinity War. Like,
yeah.
I'm like, I didn't realize, because I'm not like you. I didn't know any of the comics. I had only watched a handful of the MCU movies before Infinity War. I'd watched the past 2 Avengers, but I hadn't seen them all. And I'm like seeing all this stuff. I don't think I'd even seen Black Panther. And I'm like seeing all this stuff come together, the stones, like the Tesseract from the first Avengers and stuff. And I'm like, whoa, you mean this all was building toward, and I was like, it was so cool. And the fact that, like I said, the fact that they alluded to so much Hulk stuff in Brave New World made me be like, this is promising. Like, I think they're really hinting. I think that's what the purpose of this movie was too, was to hint at we're about to do something pretty cool again.
Yeah.
So
I agree. That's actually a really good way of putting it. I agree. I think the whole purpose of this from the get-go was to just say, we've heard you and we're working on it.
Yeah.
Like, because a lot of the bigger gripes have been recently that, like, none of these movies feel cohesive anymore. Like, none of them feel like they're in the same universe anymore. You don't really see a whole lot of crossover in a lot of these anymore, and it's just starting to get to a point where it feels like, what's the point in calling this the MCU? Like,
yeah.
And I think this movie did a good job at trying to correct some of that.
Do you know what I'm kind of looking forward to is seeing Tom Holland's Spider-Man and Sam Wilson as the new, like, Iron Man, Captain America dynamic. Because in Far From Home, they kind of set it up as Peter Parker's taking over Tony Stark's, he's kind of stepping into his shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Like when he was making his suit in the ship and everything.
Right.
And that's still something that's kind of hanging in the air that they've never fully... But now Sam Wilson's going to try to bring the Avengers back. I think they're going to do something like him and Spider-Man are going to basically be the new Iron Man and Captain America.
Yeah.
Which is another reason, by the way, they could have left Sam Wilson as Falcon. They didn't have to, because Spider-Man's still Spider-Man, even though he's taking over Tony Stark's role. But
I
anyway.
mean, I'm interested too, because as of how things sit right now, no one remembers him.
Yeah.
So, and he's far from Iron Man right now, because he's got like his most basic suit he's ever had, other than his like pajama one. He lost all that stuff.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm interested too to see how they do that. I gotta say, that's probably one of my most anticipated like solo films. Actually, it is my most anticipated solo film coming up in the MCU. The only other thing I'm even remotely as close to as excited for is like Secret Wars and stuff, but those are the big ensemble. I mean, everyone's going to be there for that one, but yeah, Spider-Man 4 is going to be very interesting. I'm excited to see what they do with all that, and are they going to backtrack on it at some point, or are they just going to stick with like, nope, he's starting over? I don't know. We'll see. But I will say just a couple things, to tie up some of the positives, and then I do want to touch on a couple like more specific gripes that I had. But to say a couple more positive things, I really did like Anthony Mackie as Sam in this. He's still doing a good job. I like his energy. He's a very charismatic guy. I love how he takes this role and really, really, really just tries to push for like unity completely all around. Like, he just seems like a good dude, Yeah. He's easy to root for. I like him. And I still like how he carries the mantle. I'm with you and probably a lot of other people. I mean, Chris Evans, Captain America, is always going to be like the Captain America that I'm like, gosh, like that is the embodiment of Captain America. like even years from now when they inevitably and eventually recast all these roles and maybe start over from scratch, it's going to be hard for me to see someone who's not Chris Evans in that costume and holding the shield. But Anthony does a good job here. I think he did a very, very good job of carrying this movie as the main protagonist. And Harrison Ford, man, that guy's got to be like 80 something years old.
Yeah.
And he put in a really good performance as Thunderbolt Ross. So I give him credit too. I think both of them did a really good job as two of the like marquee names on the film. And lastly, I wish I remember the guy's name, and I'd look it up. But anyone, you just look it up. The guy who played the leader, which he also was in Incredible Hulk. To Daniel's point of them still like digging up things from that long ago.
He was also in Holes.
Was he really? Oh yeah,
Mr. Pendanski.
Oh my gosh, I did not even realize that.
Yeah.
Holy crap, that is wild.
Shows you the actor's got a good range.
Oh yeah, phenomenal, man. And man, does he kill it in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was so intimidating and creepy. His whole plan of like the music with the mind control. I'm telling you, I wish they would have leaned more into that. That would have been so cool for a cat movie. But I digress. The point is, he did a really good job. I really enjoyed seeing him in that role. And
I would have preferred a cinnamon roll.
I say I don't like those.
Do you really?
No.
Wait, no, you don't really, or
no, I really don't.
You really don't like cinnamon rolls?
No, not really,
dude. I mean, I was just making a joke, but this got serious.
Change of topic.
Have you never had a fresh baked cinnamon roll where it's like gooey in the center?
Mm-hmm.
You don't like that?
Nah.
Oh my gosh, dude. This is off. I promise I won't go long on this because I want to hear what you got to say next.
Good.
But Inda Coffee.
Yeah.
They had their cinnamon rolls are the best cinnamon rolls I've ever had in my life. Now, if you don't like cinnamon rolls, you might not like them, but I got one time. I was meeting someone there, and I had already had like as much coffee as I wanted to have for the day. So I was like, I'll just get a cinnamon roll. And I just thought, whatever. I'm just paying them to be here to talk to someone, so I don't want to just take up their space for free.
Right.
And like I devoured that thing before the guy even showed up because I was like, I took a bite. And I was like, oh my god, it was so good. 3 more, please. Yeah.
The guy shows up. You're like, yeah, I just ordered my first cinnamon roll. It's my first one. Why? It's the first one I've had today. What about you? How many have you had?
He's like, man, that makes me feel bad. I've had 6. You weren't even here yet. I know.
I ate them on the way.
Someone comes out of the kitchen. Do you know what happened to that stash of cinnamon rolls we had in the...
Yeah, some homeless guy snuck into the back. Yeah, no, I've never had them, but yeah, I'm not a big fan. Not like of them in particular, just of cinnamon rolls. Never.
Man, that's a shame.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it really is. I know that I'm in the minority there.
Yeah,
I'm well aware. So just to touch on a couple specific things, and we don't have to dwell too long on any of these because I mean we've already kind of talked about some of them, but Falcon was annoying in this movie.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I agree.
I get they're trying to go with this like whole youthful energy thing or whatever, but you could portray that without calling someone old in every scene you're in.
Yeah.
I got really tired of him calling everyone old man. Oh, you're old. Look how young. I'm like, dude, you look like you're in your like 30s. Like you're not that young looking. Like, I mean, it's not like you're a teenager. It would almost make more sense if he was like almost like some like 19-ish year old kid who is like on the fringe of like being kicked out of the military because he's just a little too wild, and then he meets up with Sam like in the show, and Sam kind of like gets him in line, and then they form this partnership or whatever. But instead, it's this thing of like he's a fine dude. I mean, he's fine. I mean, he's a good guy. I can tell or whatever. I don't have an issue with him as a person. It just the kind of humor they gave him in this movie did not hit for me at all.
Yeah.
The whole tell me I don't make your old gear look better or look brand new or whatever. I'm just like, all right, man. I did not love that. like I said, I think the leader was undermined as the villain. I really hate that. He did such a good job, and I think they really shot themselves in the foot with the marketing of this movie being what it was. But, I mean, it is what it is. Which leads into Red Hulk's surprise was ruined, and I don't think it needed to be. This might be a hot take. I don't know. I think Sam needs the serum. Am I alone? Am I alone?
Well, that's one of the complaints that I've heard a lot is people said that the shield should have gone to Bucky because he is a super soldier.
Right.
And
has the vibranium arm.
Yeah. And I get it from that perspective. So,
my thing is, I think it's admirable that they went through the whole show and he never used it or took it or whatever. But here's the thing. Here's the problem. There's really only two ways to go with this. Either he doesn't take it and kind of the message you're sending is that it's not okay to take it, like it's almost like a drug allegory, in which case you're really crapping all over Captain America's whole thing because he had it and you portray him as like infallible. So he's not infallible if he took it and you're saying it's bad to take it. Or the other option is he just takes it and now it makes more sense that he's fighting the Red Hulk.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. Like, again, I don't hold it completely against the movie. I'm not saying it ruined it for me, but I do sit there and I'm like, people had a problem, like to this day, have a problem with one of my favorite scenes in the Infinity Saga, which was in Infinity War when Thanos comes to Wakanda to finally get the last stone, and he's like smacking through everyone to get to Vision, and he goes up to Steve and like tries to like smash down on him with his fist, and Steve catches it with his arms and he's like looking at him, and Thanos kind of like is like shocked for a second, and then he just punches him anyway. I mean, that scene clearly shows that Thanos is much stronger than him, but it was also meant to show that like Cap is just made of such sheer willpower that he could take that first blow and like fight back a little because that's who he is. And people had a problem with that. They had a problem with the fact that he could catch a blow by Thanos. And I'm like, really? Why? I mean, Thanos held back that whole movie. He showed it time and time again. He could have demolished everyone, and he didn't. What makes you think he went 100% on that hit? I mean, he probably didn't think he needed to. He was probably just shocked that Cap could take him even holding back, like, because he's just a human. Even with the super soldier serum, like, he's just a human. And, you know, my thing is, you had a problem with that, but we don't have a problem with Sam fighting aliens and the Red Hulk.
A lot of people I saw did have a problem with that. They were like, so some non-serum regular dude is just going to fight the Red Hulk?
Well, and not to mention the way he throws the shield.
Yeah.
I'm like, I could buy it with Cap because, yeah, he's throwing it with the strength of like 10 men. Like, I mean, he's not a normal person. The way Sam throws it is the exact same. And I'm like, it makes sense that he could hold it. Like, I don't view it as too heavy for him to hold, but to throw it the way he does, I'm like, dude, y'all might as well just give the man the serum. Like, it just makes sense. Like, he's not Batman. He didn't like spend his whole life training his body to the peak of physical human condition. And even then with Batman, people sometimes have a problem with how far they stretch what he can do.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just give him the serum. Like, what's the problem? You had a whole show of people taking it that he was in. So anyway, like I said, that might be a hot take. It sounds to me like you've seen a lot of people agree with that.
Yeah.
I haven't really. I've actually seen a lot of people who are like really on the side of him not taking it and like really love that he didn't.
That's me. Only because if you're going to give him the serum, then why didn't Cap just give the shield to Bucky?
I mean,
that presents that issue.
Here's my thing to that. Because I was a little bummed when he gave it to Sam in Endgame as well. But what I've come to realize is that he did that for Bucky, not for Sam. Bucky did not. First of all, Bucky could not have been Captain America.
Yeah, I agree.
Because he was literally a Russian murderer assassin for decades.
Right.
And all that got spilled out to the public in Civil War. Everyone knew it. That's literally what made Iron Man freak out on him. And I realize I'm like looking at you saying this, and you're like agreeing with me. So I'm not like trying to like lay it on thicker, but I'm also explaining it to everyone else. Because a lot of people have that sentiment. They're like, why didn't he give it to... There are a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
First of all, he couldn't. I mean, it would have made, and you people would have been the first ones pointing it out. Well, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So he couldn't. Reason number 2, Bucky didn't want it.
Yeah.
Bucky would not have. He's tired. He's fought his whole life. He literally says that in Civil War. Like he just wants to be left alone. Mm-hmm. He just wants to live a life. He never got to. The poor guy. I mean, he never got to. He went into the military as a young kid, like a young man. Fought, almost died, lost an arm, got kidnapped, brainwashed, sent on assassination missions for years and years and years. When he finally got out of that and went on the run from the American government at that point, they found him and he had to fight all over it. He didn't want it. So not only could he not, he didn't want it. Sam was the only legitimate option that Cap would have trusted with his life and the lives of everyone in this country to uphold that mantle. And so, story-wise, I have no problem with him getting it.
Yeah,
at all.
Me too.
It makes sense. Now, that being said, I still think he needs the serum, but that's a whole other thing.
Well, I agree with all those reasons, and you even brought up things I hadn't even considered. So that makes sense why Sam should take the serum then.
Yeah.
That my whole thing was like, well, if you're going to give him the serum, then why not just give the shield to Bucky? But you brought up even more reasons. I was never against Sam getting the shield.
Right. It just I was the same. Like, I was curious at first. I was like, why not Bucky? Like, that's your oldest friend.
Yeah.
He would be a great Cap. But the more I started thinking about it, I was like, well, it would make no sense. For his story, it would make no sense. He just wants to be done. That's why in this movie, he's like running for, what did they say, governor? Or Congressman. He wants to play a part and try and help people, but he doesn't want to fight. He's done with that. Like, he's so done with it, which is why I'm very interested to see how they get him back in the field in Thunderbolts. I'm interested to see, because I do not like that woman that like put them together.
Oh, yeah.
And I think she blackmails him because he's like trying to go into government. I think she blackmails him with something from his past that hasn't quite come out yet or something to get him to work with these people out in the field. Either that or it's just such a dire situation that he feels like he has to because there's no Avengers yet or something.
Interesting.
I'm very interested to see. Like, that Thunderbolts trailer we saw at the beginning of this movie made me be like, oh snap, that actually looks pretty good. Like, the first trailer they put out for it was interesting, but it didn't blow my mind. But that one made it look like really fun. Like, it made it look like a really fun movie.
Yeah, I agree.
But anyway, so that, that's my little take on him. I think he needs the serum. I already said this, but I don't think Sidewinder needed to be in this movie. I mean, that's just me. I feel like that was, and from what I've heard, he got added in reshoots.
Oh, yeah.
So something in the original version of this movie didn't work, and they felt like they needed to kind of shoehorn this storyline in there to make something else smooth out. Didn't ruin the movie for me. I just don't think he needed to be there. And I also already said, don't love how the final fight ended. I think Betty could have been more integral. Those kind of tie in together. And so some things I definitely wanted to address. One of them we've already talked about, which is I think the audience knowing about Red Hulk really threw this whole thing off from the get-go. So we're not going to harp on that anymore. But you had pointed out, and I'm just at this point just going to talk about this for the sake of like people in general. I think when you start to talk about the couple things I'm about to address is when you're at the point of what we said earlier, where it's like you're just determined that this movie was going to be bad.
Yeah.
You had sent me a video where a guy was talking about like the Chinese government would never dare like attack something or whatever, like with the U.S. military involved.
No, Japan.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Would never, attack something with the U.S. military involved and stuff like that. And that also, he brought up about the girl, the widow, taking down dudes like twice her size. And here's my thing. In real world logic, do I expect, I don't know, she looked like what, about 5 foot even? Like,
yeah.
Do I expect
really, really thin too?
Like a real tiny framed girl to go into a room of even untrained, but I mean, especially trained like men and just take them all down every single time unscathed? No. But again, we're watching a comic book movie, and she's supposed to be a Black Widow. I mean, did you ever watch that movie?
No.
They are like ridiculously trained. Like it would make sense. I mean, Black Widow did it. The one we know, you know what I mean. She did it. Yelena does it. The other ones in the movie that I don't remember their name did it. Like, it makes some sense. I guess I get it if that's just something that you walked away from and you were like, man, that just took me out of the movie. Whatever. I mean, I don't think she did it that much in the movie. She was kind of
like
a side character,
Yeah.
and we maybe saw her, like you said, I was literally going to say, maybe saw her fight twice. Now, yeah, I would have had a problem if she, like, jumped up and tried to, like, scissor kick Red Hulk and, like, knock him on the ground. Okay, yeah, but I had a problem with Sam doing that. So, I mean, you know, it's the same thing. Like, you know, yeah, there's limits. But at the same time, I mean, to me, there were more egregious examples of their superhumanness in the Black Widow movie than in this one. Like, in the Black Widow movie, you had them jumping off, like, high up rooftops, landing on the concrete, and, like, getting up, walking away from it. I'm like, no, you're dead. Like, lay back down. The movie's over. You're dead. In this, it was more just like, you know, the odds are against her, but whatever. It was a cool little action scene. And then the thing with the military, I'm like, I don't disagree necessarily. Like, I don't know. Maybe this is just me. I don't go watch Marvel movies for real world military politics.
Exactly. That's my thing too.
I mean, I'm like, what? Like, I don't know, man.
Well, on top of that, there's also very Top Gun Maverick 2. I mean, Top Gun 2, Top Gun Maverick, the second Top Gun, is actually a good example of this.
I'm sorry.
That was so rude, Chris. You're going to start choking while I'm talking? How dare you? Are you okay?
You fumble it. You're like, Top Gun 2, Maverick, the second Top Gun.
I was hoping. I guess you were realizing that. I was fumbling through that, thinking, man, he's not responding, so I'm getting away with it. But no.
Yeah, that made me choke a little. Got a little verklempt.
Anyway, Top Gun Maverick, fantastic film. Oh, have you seen it?
I haven't seen either one.
Well, the first one is totally overrated. It's a dumb movie, to be honest with you.
That's a hot take.
Yeah, Claire and I watched it together one time. We were like, what? This is supposed to be a classic. It was kind of like a Godfather thing. It was a super cheesy. For one, the effects with the flying was just so bad because of it was hard to follow. But for two, it was just the storyline. It just ended up being this cheesy romance, and there's like this random scene where there's no scene to show that she changes her mind about him at all, and she just shows up at his house. She like follows him there, and it's like, I'm in love with you. And you're like, what? You hated him 2 seconds ago. It made no sense. So yeah, I do not like the first one, but the second one looked cool in the trailers.
Yeah, it really did.
I heard good things about it online from people I trust, so I was like, we'll give it a shot. Blew me away. Phenomenal. Okay. One of my favorite films of all time. I mean, It is so good.
Okay.
I love Top Gun 2. And all the flying was real this time. I mean, Tom Cruise is actually flying a fighter pilot. He is. Yeah. All the pilots are in the movie.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy. So good. But
we were talking about real world politics, military stuff.
I don't want to spoil it for you, but basically they go up against a country in Top Gun Maverick in a sense that has all of this gear that we're not prepared for, and so the crew is basically the underdog in the fight. They're like, they have to figure out a way to accomplish this mission with less gadgets. In the real world, that would never happen because the U.S. military like makes every other military look like a hobbits, you know, in compared to the size.
Big feet, big hairy feet.
Yeah, that would never happen.
Yeah.
It's in a lot of people were upset about. Well, I shouldn't say a lot, but I did see some people online being like, I hated how they kept like being so talking about how much more advanced and better the other militaries are, and I'm like, you're completely missing. I actually thought Top Gun Maverick was super patriotic, like super American, because the whole thing that started our country, the American Revolution, was like that. We were a bunch of farmers with torches and pitchforks going up against the British Empire.
Real military, yeah.
Yeah, and that was the spirit behind it. And in a sense, there's still that kind of spirit behind the country, I think. People who are really into the country. But so I didn't even mean to go down that tangent, but the whole point was
it makes sense. I get what you're saying.
In the movie, it it still captured the spirit of what it's like to be an American and fight for your country in Top Gun Maverick 2. Even though I knew the stakes wouldn't happen in the real world, for this movie, for one, it's a comic book film. There's a celestial guardian coming up out of the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
I mean, you're telling me that, like, let's just say that happened. You're telling me Japan wouldn't even try to, like, get involved?
Or every country?
Yeah. On top
of that...
And
they said that in the meeting, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
He said every country was trying to lay stakes and claims on different parts of it.
Right. The other thing that the people missed about that were saying Japan would never go again. It's a completely different stakes because the United States initiated a treaty between all these countries, and now they're seemingly doing things to go against it. So Japan is kind of forced to retaliate. So it doesn't even if they are laughable in size, if in a situation like that, a government would have to retaliate. They'd have to try.
Yeah.
So, like, it still doesn't even make sense on that level.
What it boils down to, like I said at the beginning of that, is like, if that's what you walked away from with, like, that was your takeaway of that whole movie that had a giant heated up red monster in it, that your takeaway was, well, the representation of the military was completely off. Okay. All right. Don't come to any more Marvel movies. I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, please just stop going. Like, I'm at a point. I've talked with a guy at work a lot. We're big into the MCU. We're a little disappointed with it right now, but we're hoping it's about to be getting better. And we both say the same thing. I'm all for you not liking a movie. That's your right. That's your opinion. But stop trying to make everyone else hate it.
Yeah.
For your niche reasons. Like, you know, if you didn't like that the Black Widow beat up some dudes, or you didn't like that the Japan military, you know, did something that was unrealistic, fine. There might be a whole community of people out there who agree with you.
Yeah.
Go find them. Don't try and turn people who were like maybe on the fence about this movie or just really nonchalant about it, like it was okay, it was whatever. Don't try and like turn them into people who hate it. A pretty decent movie, because the thing is, Marvel, you know, people think this probably isn't true, but I'm telling you, I know this is true. Marvel, someone there listens to the noise.
Yeah.
And they're going to get the wrong idea about the reaction to this film if they're hearing the loud minority talk about like a few little things that most people were like me and you. Like, I didn't love it, but like it didn't ruin it.
Yeah.
And I think there are multiple ways to go about, you know, talking about a film. And I don't think you should ever exaggerate on one end or the other. I don't think you should, like, just because this wasn't the worst Marvel movie, I don't think you should walk out of it going, man, this was amazing, because it wasn't. But just because it wasn't perfect doesn't mean you should walk out of it and be like, that was garbage. No. They did a lot of things right in this one that we've been begging them to do.
Yeah.
I mean, they are finally trying to fix some mistakes and get things back cohesive, tie some storylines together, and make this back into a connected universe. You know, the villain was cool. Both villains were cool. It's just we knew about one of them.
Yeah.
Had no one known about Red Hulk, that would have blown people's minds.
Yeah.
You mark my words. The next time Marvel does something where, because I think they'll learn from this, I do, and I think they might do it with Fantastic Four. For all I know, Doom might be in Fantastic Four. So far, we don't know.
Yeah.
If he is, I hope and pray they don't put him in a trailer. Just don't.
My favorite thing about the trailer so far is they've given you very little information.
Very little. Even with Galactus, we've only seen his shadow.
Yeah.
I don't need any more.
Yeah.
I know who he is. I don't need any more. Don't show me. I don't want to hear his voice. Wait for the movie. Because at the very least, people will have to wait till they see it to form their opinion, even if it's a bad one. I mean, when you give people too much, you know, to go off of before it even releases, yeah, you're going to get plenty of people who are just, well, this is going to suck no matter what.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
and like the guy who said the thing about the boss babe kind of thing, like, to agree to an extent, I've never liked that about the MCU or comic book movies. Like, I just don't, I don't like that. Like, I prefer
the Black Widow thing.
Just any kind of female super actiony star. I'm not saying ladies can never fight, but having female superheroes, like She-Hulk as a character in general, I know that's a comic book character, but I just don't like that. Like, it feels like it's more of a. I mean, at least She-Hulk, it makes sense because she has a serum or she got or gamma rays.
His blood, yeah.
Yeah. So it makes sense with her because she's this massive Amazonian type, green woman. But like characters like Black Widow, I don't like Black Widow. I don't like having boss babe characters, but I know that that's comic book movies. That's how comic books are. And I understand that going into, I'm not expecting that they're going to completely change the way they've always done those things.
Right.
Because of that. If you don't like those, if you don't like those types of characters to the point where it ruins the film for you, you just shouldn't watch those movies. I mean, why are you into the MCU at all?
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I would love if a new comic book line came out, or it didn't even have to be comic books. If a new comic company made their own films and there were no boss babe type characters, I'd be all on board with that. But I'm not expecting that from the MCU.
Yeah.
It's like I understand what they're going to do with it. And it's like, yeah, they're going to throw some characters like that in there. It's like, all right.
Well, I mean, I don't know. For me, it kind of, I guess, I'm a little more middling on it because, like, there are some really iconic female superhero characters and villains. Mystique in the X-Men, and then you got, like, Storm and Jean Grey.
But those are, okay, well, you've changed my mind a little bit. Those are female characters. They're not boss babes. I wouldn't call them that. They are just, even in the way that they fight and use their stuff, they're still effeminate in the way that they do it. Like, I don't feel like they're trying to be like this, beat up this 100-pound dude, or 100-pound. I'm a 100-pound lady beating up this like 300-pound guy by just like, yeah, pow. That's the kind of stuff that I hate. Like Jean, she's got like psychic powers, and she uses them in ways that like they don't feel masculine. It doesn't feel like she's trying to be like this masculine character or whatever.
Well, I don't know.
Same with Storm and Mystique too. She's like, even though she does kind of beat up some people sometimes, she's very fluid and like, I don't know. It's the way that it's done. I mean, yeah.
I feel like that's how Black Widow fights.
No, I don't think so. Black Widow is like she's straight up like kung fu, knocking people out. Like, Mystique is probably towing the line for me, I would even say. Like, I prefer, it makes sense with someone like Storm because she's just creating storms.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I see what you mean. I don't know. That doesn't bother me.
Yeah. Well, to each his own. And most comic book lovers, probably, it doesn't bother them.
Yeah.
That's why I go into those movies being like, that's fine.
Yeah.
This is what I expect from this,
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, I mean, all in all, when it's said and done, I don't think this is like going down as like a top 10 Marvel film in the MCU or anything, but I do think they corrected a lot. I do think they're heading in the right direction. And, if I had to rate it, I give it like a 3.5 stars out of 5. I mean, it's a little better than just completely in the middle. If they would have handled the end conflict a little better or handled the promotion a little better, like they could have done just one extra thing and probably gotten that half a star from me, and it probably would have been a 4-star enjoyable film.
Yeah.
Like one I would watch again easily. As it sits, I would check it out again, but definitely not in a theater. It's definitely not a go back to the theater and rewatch it. It's probably one I'd say I don't even know that I don't regret going, but I don't know that I needed to see it in a theater. There's some of those that you're just like, that wasn't the best movie ever, but I'm glad I saw it for the first time in a theater. I don't even know if it was one of those for me.
Yeah.
But I give it like a 3.5, somewhere in there.
I think I would say that too. It wasn't a total disaster. It wasn't the best movie ever. It was entertaining.
Right.
I might watch it again.
Right.
But the best thing, you probably, I think, would agree with this, but the best thing about that movie is the strong hints they dropped for what's coming.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, if there's one thing it did right, especially with the post-credit scene and then all the Avengers talk in the movie, was it at least got my hopes up for like, okay, in the next 2-3 years, now that everything's rolling again with the movie industry, we should be getting some really cool stuff. So I'm very excited for that.
Me too.
Like I said, I'd love to do one where we talk about Secret Wars one day.
Yeah.
Just see what you do.
We should do it as Secret Wars approaches, like when it's starting to get talked about and stuff.
Like a hype up. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
That way it's fresh on everyone's minds, and you can just geek out in front of me and be like, this is what happens, and I'm like, huh. Like a fire hose. Do you know what episode I would really, really love to do, though? I don't know, because I don't know if you know as many as I do. Maybe you know more. I don't know. But I would like to do the best movies you've probably never heard of, because I'm all like, and this might just be a me thing. Maybe I just have to talk to you about it, but like Hottie Boombalati is a good example.
Yeah. I
watched a movie with my wife called Dean. It's got Dimitri Martin in it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He wrote it and everything. It was great. I don't know why he doesn't do more films. It was so good.
He doesn't do a lot of anything, it seems like.
I know,
anymore.
yeah.
How old is that? Do you know?
Probably 10 to 15 years old.
Okay.
It was on Amazon. It's a dramedy. I'm a sucker for dramedies. Good mix. And it's got some really funny parts that I'm like fairly certain you would laugh at. Not like a Sing Street.
So
yeah.
I liked his little special called If I. And
is that the one where he has like the easel and he's like showing you his graphs and drawings?
Probably. It's the one where he's like, it's actually more of like a TED Talk than a comedy special. And he's talking about like him trying to find like his purpose going through college, and like he would make games in class of like trying to come up with like who could say these like fit these crazy words in their answers to the professor. And he started making 3-dimensional crossword puzzles where you had to go across, up and down, and through 3 levels of like depth, like crazy. And he was making them. He wasn't like solving them. He was creating them, which to me is arguably much harder.
Yeah. Dude, I gotta watch this special.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've watched it multiple times. It's on YouTube. It's called If I, because If I is a palindrome, and he talks a lot about this like crazy long palindrome like poem he was working on that reads the same frontwards and backwards. It's really insane.
That's really cool.
He's an insane mind. Like, his level of intelligence is baffling.
Yeah.
So it might be, I guess, based on your reaction, I'm assuming it's a different one than what you've seen.
He must be into Scientology.
Probably. He's actually Greek.
Yeah, he looks Greek, actually.
Which, I was like, yeah. Represent.
Anyway, I don't know what our next episode's going to be, but that would be a fun one.
If I can think of any.
I was going to say, you might not know any, so it might not. Maybe we'll do one where you just grill me about Secret Wars, and I'll grill you about the best indie films. I love finding hidden gems, like movies that are hidden gems that most people haven't heard of, and I'm like, why not? I don't know why I like that so much.
Have you ever heard of, which I might be wasting one here, but have you ever heard of Titanic? It's like this ship. Little kid gets on a ship. He's like poor, and I don't want to spoil the end, but
that got me pretty good. You really set that up well, because you're like, oh man, I might be giving one away here. I was like, dang, he's got a good one. I'm gonna be watching something tonight
for 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
You like that
I
movie?
haven't heard of it.
No,
I'm just okay. I guess so.
I like it until like The Crash.
Oh, really? Why?
Because I love the time frame. Like, I love the period piece aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Leonardo is a really good actor.
Definitely.
I just love watching him act. And he's just like so like free spirit, like innocent, like just look, I'm not even supposed to be here in that movie. And it's really cool. And then the Crash part, it's interesting. But like I like seeing the whole them falling in love and all that stuff, and it's like a forbidden love, and all that to me is cool. The Crash thing, first of all, it's gonna happen, and then second of all, they drag it out so long.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's realistic. I mean, a ship that big wouldn't just go and just. I mean, but But
That was amazing sound effects.
it it wouldn't just drop to the bottom of the ocean, but it just lasts so long. I'm just like, oh my gosh.
And also, he could have fit on the door.
Yeah, I'm one of those. I will die on that hill.
Yeah.
He didn't have to die.
Yeah, he did not have to die.
They could have maybe gotten a more convincing prop for her to float on
Yeah.
if they wanted to convince. And I mean, good grief. I mean, at that point, they had already hooked up in the movie. He couldn't have just laid on top of her and they share the piece of wood.
Yeah.
Even if he wouldn't fit. Like,
And their body heat would have helped,
yeah,
you know?
that's true too. I didn't
Yeah.
even think of that.
Yep.
And then if they got really cold, they could start burning the wood.
Yeah. They had matches. Did they have matches?
Probably. I don't know. Nah, but yeah, the ending is just, it's so forced.
Yeah.
But I love the beginning of that movie. The whole first half, I could watch it over and over.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I don't mind it. I don't really have any strong opinions about it other than he could have fit on the door.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's a good movie.
Fair enough. So we're both at like 3.5-ish for Brave New World?
I think so.
That's
It's
fair.
not as bad as everyone's making it out to be, but it's not great either.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. By MCU standards, it could be a lot better. But by the internet standards, you should probably go watch it because it's not a bad movie. It's a fun 2 hours to go just chill and watch a fun movie.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Especially with, it's the beginning of the year. Nothing great is out right now.
Yeah.
But, so that's our review of that. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, we're sorry we're a little late getting to you this time, but we're going to go back to our more regular schedule after this and just stick with what we know.
Yeah. It's a nice format,
Yeah, it's chill, and it's something we can easily do until we get a little bit more of the kinks worked out, figure some stuff out. But until then, I guess we'll see you next time, and we're going to sign off.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Oh, I have to pee so bad.